Hi, welcome back to the Marination Project. I am your host, Osvaldo Museta. And in this week, we are going to speak about recovering a sense of possibility, specifically the cost of settling for appearing good instead of being authentic. And I'm going to start from just a reminder we're reading from The Artist's Way. I'm going to start with a quote that was really like slapping the face, but in a good way. And it reads, "You will do foolish things, but do them with enthusiasm." And I'd like to start by highlighting how much in the last season, the main thing was about embracing the cringe. And just by doing that, it's opened so many doors, so many new opportunities, so many cool new people I've met because I've simply allowed myself to be me in the most authentic expression. And once you actually figure out what the cost of settling to appear good, what exactly the cost is, what you're paying for, it becomes no brainer to actually just switch to being more of the authentic you. Now, part of why this episode is late, right, was I was recovering from the weekend festivities. Yesterday, I even made a full podcast, but I forgot to press play. Talk about retrogrades and seasons, right? I'm glad those are done. So let's start with the weekend. There was a lot that went on this weekend, probably one of the best weekends to kickstart the year with, because you know how January is. I was also celebrating my birthday. So this was the opportunity for me to actually just go out, have fun, hold space, and be around people I truly cherish and that are dear to my heart. So I met a dear friend on the Saturday, and I remember we started having deep conversations as the night progressed. This was at our house, and I asked her, I'm like, friend, you've known me for quite some time, and we don't normally see each other every like month. We'll have like space where we don't get to be in each other's presence, which is like healthy for us given the type of lives we're living. So I asked her, from the time you last saw me to now, and those Valdo you saw when we first started interacting to now, is there anything that I need to work on? Are there any areas that I might have blind spots to that from me catching up with you today that you could say, oh, is there you need to pull up your pants? And I was like, and I asked that because I love honest feedback. Same way I'm willing to receive it, I'm willing to give it. So she then said, actually, you know what I will say is I can tell from the Osvaldo that I first met back then versus the Osvaldo that I'm seeing now, the man that is before me now. And what I can tell is a clear difference is how you are authentic in your expression. You are now you, truly you, doing what you want to do. Back then, you were just doing things to please people, to be good. And for context, we met in the church. So at that time, when I was still in the church, I saw how much I was lying to myself in terms of my own expression, inner expression, right? I was constantly doing things to fit other people's levels of judgment of what is good and what is wrong, right? It was not tailored to me. And this is not to say that good and bad have scales, like you can just decide what is good and bad. But most I'm talking about my own authentic expression of what I believe my truth to be. I was not living in that. And she said, I saw how much it limited you, how much you limited yourself in the things that you desired to do, in the dreams that you wanted to chase, but you couldn't because you always waited on other people, right? So you could fit into their confines. And that meant that the cost you paid was being inauthentic. But now, today, I see everything that you've done, everything you've embarked on, and all the dreams, even the way you carry yourself is so different in that you're willing to explore and do you and to figure things out. But all of it, you're doing it from a place of authenticity. And I was like, man, that's actually wild because that confirmed to me the work that I'd been doing for the last 3 years. And that work is never easy because you're constantly questioning whether you're right, whether you're wrong, whether you can, whether you can't. And you're thinking about all the fears that people will project onto you as you start unlocking a new pathway for yourself, especially a pathway that's never been walked before within my own generation. So through her, I was now able to see the difference between the boy and the man that's emerging. So I was like, okay, this is good confirmation. Now, what I liked about this week, unlocking a sense of possibility. Possibility is also faith. It was bringing it back to God. And it had me questioning my relationship now with God. First, seeing it what it used to be, what it is now, and what it can be for tomorrow. And I've had to grapple with the idea of God being the source, being my source, and uncover my relationship with God in that regard. This is so underrated, but actually discover that your relationship with your earthly authoritative figure largely affects the relationship that you're going to have with the divine figure. So I say that to be inclusive, but more so whatever relationship you have with your earthly authoritative figure in your life, this is mainly now your father, right? And for those that didn't have fathers around, that means your main authoritative figure would be your mother. So your relationship with fathers especially will translate to the relationship that you have with the spiritual authoritative figures in your life. So how you view God and how much limits you place or possibilities you place around what God can do in your life are largely dictated by your childhood relationship with your father. This is why that is such an important relationship in your life. A relationship that so often you may need to actually take responsibility over in healing yourself. It doesn't always require that it's like a mutual part. If you can, do it. But it's for your own good and detriment. You need to be able to heal that relationship within you, especially for your inner child. Why? It's because I also noticed that growing up, outside of my father meeting my needs, standard needs, call them that, like taking me to school, feeding me, and ensuring I have clothes, I never felt at liberty to ask in hopes of receiving for myself. Sure, I could ask on behalf of my sisters, I could ask on behalf of other people that were in need, but for myself, it was just something I placed a limit on. Be it because of circumstances, or be it because one day you're told no and you took that no to heart. But I started to notice this. And when I did, it made me look at my relationship with God. Now, I can easily come to God and pray and ask for stuff on other people's behalf. Like if someone asks, pray for me, I would drop bars on bars when it came to prayer. But for my own needs, I simply failed or struggled to bring those to God. I placed a limit that, listen, I don't think God cares if I have a pair of socks today, so I'm not going to ask for it. Instead, I'll just go do it by myself. And there's even a quote in here I really loved where I'm just going to quickly find it. So the quote went like, in other words, you pray to catch the bus, but then run as fast as you can. And I remember this being very much me in that, sure, when I was trying it out, I would sure pray for what I want, but immediately I'm hitting the ground running. There's no me waiting for synchronicities to fall into place, for the universe to open that pathway for me and say, hey, remember this prayer? This is the pathway to go to it. Here's the bus to get to that destination. I'll rather be like, okay, I know where the destination is. Sure, I can start running. And then when the bus eventually comes through, I'll get on into it. But I would have rather started running and trusting my own self. And this was the biggest question where I was reconstructing into spirituality, where I was like, can I truly bear the weight that comes from me understanding that I am God? Because that's such heavy weight on my shoulders. And I'm like, can I bear the burden and the cost? And it was a difficult question to dive into. But the more I then started to grow my relationship with my understanding of who God is, the divine, the oneness, and understanding my place in it, in within my own divinity that comes from that, and me being a co-creator alongside God, I was like, sure, we can't, because the weight was never mine to bear. I am simply here for joyful expansion. That's it. And I'm here to experience it, to experience all of life, because I've subscribed to it. I've said yes to all the experiences that are coming my way. And me understanding that just gave me back so much power in understanding that, whoa, I can shape this reality alongside God to where my destiny is. Like, my destiny sits, it's just more so how I want to get there. Do I want to get there running? Do I want to get there on a bus or on a plane? But it's set in stone that I am becoming who I am. Period. And I am that now. Same way I'll be that tomorrow. So that really then started to change the dynamics of my relationship with God. First, seeing where it came from, understanding how to get myself out of that, and then forming a new relationship with God as a source. And one of the plenty ways I've seen when you embark on these things to learn, the lessons don't just come wrapped in a box and then it's like, oh, here's the lesson. You're like, I get it now. No, it's going to require a test. And the last 6 months have proven to be that grand test because, fun fact, I quit my job 6 months ago. And it was not a sad story of I quit because I hated it or I quit, like the normal stories. I think I've highlighted this before. But it was more so I just woke up one day and I felt within my core that as much as I enjoy this is not where I'm going to nurture the fullest authentic expression of myself. And I need that downtime to isolate and be with myself. And surely over the 6 months, I've seen how much work went into that. It was like a culmination point of the entire 3 years. And essentially, I made so many curveballs. I was prepared for like 3-4 months with savings, but there were so many curveballs early on that I now had to rely on God as a source. I now knew what it means to rely on God as source. And I'll tell you how, right? Not one day of those entire 6 months can I say I went to bed hungry because there wasn't any food. That would be a lie. I don't know how, but it's happened that till now. I am literally thriving, right? I am doing okay, more so than what would be expected of someone who's been jobless for that long, right? And that's the biggest thing in life. I was able to notice how I can ask for the smallest of needs and it will come. Even asking from friends, that was something that was so difficult for me. But I've actually built stronger relationship with certain close friends because I was able to ask and be authentic and be vulnerable in my needs and say, hey, I do need this. Can you help me out with this? And it's fostered more holistic relations with my circle, which has been beautiful. And I saw, oh, it was really me who wasn't living up to the occasion, so to speak. and even how I've started being more vocal about what it is I do. And a lot of people didn't know that. Like, a lot of people didn't actually know what my professional skill sets are versus what I post online in general. Uh, so it's really allowed me to then become more authentic in my expression, which I really love. What the mantra was for me in those last 6 months was this. It sums it up very well in terms of what my expectations have been and how most of them have always been met. It's not always rosy. Like, I've been expecting magic overnight, and to be honest, the magic is there, but it's not to the extent that I want it to be, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But I love this when they said, expect your every need to be met. Expect the answer to every problem. Expect abundance on every level. Expect to grow spiritually. This paragraph really captures what the essence of recovering a sense of possibility comes into play. Remembering that God is our source and energy flow that likes to extend itself, we become more able to tap our creative power effectively. Now listen carefully. God has lots of money. God has lots of movie ideas, novel ideas, poems, songs, paintings, acting jobs. God has a supply of loves, friends, houses that are available to us. By listening to the Creator within, we are led to our right path. On that path, we find friends, lovers, money, and meaningful work. Very often, when we cannot seem to find an adequate supply, it is because we are insisting on a particular human source of supply. We must learn to let the flow manifest itself where it will, not where we will it. I will say that again. We must learn to let the flow manifest itself where it will, not where we will it. I love it. I literally wrote down, like, I'm like, more bars. I don't know if you can see it, but like, I'm like, bars, baby, bars. Because that captures the essence of a sense of possibility so much, in that you see how we as human beings tend to limit God. Like, we are so wired to tend to limit God. Even the idea of God still irks some people. Like, how can they be a God? Why? Because all of that is just projection. That's why you have the responsibility to find God within yourself, to find out who He is. See, I even gendered Him, but to find out who God is in the grand scheme of everything you've been taught and told about who God is, who the divine is. You are standing off the cosmic universe and everything in it. That is your own responsibility. And in doing so, surely enough, you start to see what true abundance is about. It's about the experiences more so than the objects that we are so keen to holding on, because the experiences grow you more exponentially than what holding onto things does. And there is so much wealth that comes from experiences because it aligns you more with the path that is truly yours, right? And how I've also seen God lead me of recent, and that's me talking about the test as well, in that, am I relying on God being the source or on my own human supply? Right. I recently had a client that reached out, and this also goes into last week when we are talking about integrity and how, like, what is integrity? How do you uphold that? So recently I had a client that reached out and everything was well. And I was like, okay, no, I'm keen to work with this client. Sure, let's do it. It's January. I could use a client. And along the way, everything was fine. I was vibing with what businesses they do and how they've expanded, till they say to me, oh no, so what we basically do is debt trapping people. Suddenly my conscience just like went, and I was like, something in me was like, no, we can't take on this client because I want my work to help people, whatever creative expression that I embark on, it has to have a beautiful, solid meaning back to society, So that doesn't sit well. But for some reason now, it's like, do you really want to let this go because of integrity, because of your values? And I was conflicted, and I just brushed it off, kept on talking to them. And I kid you not, when he came for payments, there was so much friction with me getting that payment. They sent it multiple times, couldn't receive it. So about 2 days ago, I called him and I said, listen, I can't work with you because of this particular thing that's been sitting on my conscience. I'm not in agreement with that kind of work and what it does to people who are already desperate in their lives, So I checked out of it and I felt good. I felt really good about that redirection because I was able to say no to what it is I don't want, despite my circumstances seemingly saying to me that, Oz, you need to get paid, you need to make money, it's January, come on now, you've got plans, you've got all these things you want to do, how are you going to pay for them, Despite all of that, I was like, no, my integrity and conscience and me being authentic in my expression is more valuable than me just going on to supply a temporary need, Let's rather allow that to redirect ourselves into something else. And that story is not yet finished. I wish there was like a, grand finishing to that story and say, oh no, but then this big thing happened. I'm waiting for that big thing to happen as well. And already for me, the big thing feels like me holding true to myself is bigger than anything because now I'm trusting myself more in what I'm going to choose to work with and work on. So that was beautiful when it happened. And there was something else here that slapped me in the face in a good way. And so this is another quote where it says, often people attempt to live their lives backwards. They try to have more things or more money in order to do more of what they want so that they'll be happier. The way it actually works is the reverse. You must first be who you really are. Then do what you need to do in order to have what you want. And it's beautiful, man, that everything comes back to you being authentic, you being you truly to the core, because that will attract everything that is aligned with you. Now, I'm also going to say this about people that complain about having fake friends or similar recurring patterns in their relationships that they always complain about, right? So I'll hear someone come to me, I'm so tired of fake friends. They're always doing this, and that, and that. And I'll stop and say, wait, but why aren't you taking your power but being responsible to ask yourself, are you living in your most authentic self? Because if you are, that will attract the most authentic people in the same vibrational frequency as your authentic expression. So you will never have to worry about fake friends because you are being authentic yourself. The reason why you might be attracting fake friends over and over again or recurring patterns within your romantic life might be because you are not being authentic in your expressions. Because the moment I did, I lost a lot of friends. It sucked. And I was like, oh, the price of me keeping those friendships was me not living my most authentic self. And surely enough, I saw who was more aligned with my authentic expressions. Those people stayed. Those people could easily celebrate who I am becoming in that process because they see the authenticity. They understand the heart behind Osvaldo. So do the people in your life understand the heart within your expressions? And if not, is it really their vision that's faulty, or is it your expression of yourself that needs to be authentic? So think about that before you give your power away by blaming externalities that you can't control, and instead look inward and say, hey, how am I responsible in this particular mess of a situation? And by doing that, your you become a force to reckon with. You fall into line with your pathway, and you are able now to walk towards what it is you truly want. And I've seen what you want will change, because I strongly believe that wants are so engineered, right? Like, you want an iPhone. An iPhone is engineered for us to want it because they sell it. The way it's sold is, the marketing tactics is sold on its feelings, on experience, right? So for you, be in alignment with what it is you want to experience, and be in alignment with who you are, and let those two merge. And trust me, getting what you want becomes easier and easier by the day, right? So that's been something that has been a game changer for me in being authentic in my expressions, and also knowing time and place to bring out all the different facets in myself, but no longer hiding them, embracing every facet, right? That's why I definitely know around the social media streets, there are different people that have experienced different versions of me. There's people that have experienced the creative Osvaldo on the DJ side. There's people that experience the creative Osvaldo on a on a web design side, more professional. There are people that experienced me in my wholeness, holistic manner on TikTok, all of those things. And I love that all of it can merge together in how consistent I am within those expressions when it comes to how my heart is in it. So that's been beautiful. And I urge you to do the same. Be authentic in your expressions. So there's also now something called the virtue trap, right? Which is where we sometimes do things for other people because we need to. And it is a tough one, because, like, for me, I've always known, right, that I'm meant for bigger things. And bigger doesn't necessarily mean in numbers, but I know in terms of impact, right, I am meant and called for a bigger impact on this planet. And I had to gauge the cost, because to get there, it would mean I'd have to give up certain temporary luxuries, right? The luxury of being able to provide for other people, the luxury of enjoying what's temporary, right? And get into a path that wasn't clear, right? And just getting on, starting to go. And it's hard. It's hard because a part of you feels like you're neglecting other people. And this is why I really loved this part of understanding what the virtue trap is. And it simply asks, what are my needs? What would I do if it weren't too selfish? And I remember doing this exercise once upon a time. I was working at the headquarters of Food Lovers Market, nationwide branch. But after a year of doing it, I knew this is not for me. I was sick and tired of looking outside that small window every single day. Same things, same numbers. I hated the numbers even. But the salary was good. I was able to provide for myself at such a young age, and also be there for the people that I hold dear to in my heart, and it was big. It was big for me. But I had to sit with myself, and I made a list. I'm like, if I was selfish, what would I do with my life? And I listed all these dreams I had for myself. And over the years, I've seen so much consistency in those dreams that I know this is what's for me. I know I'm multi-passionate. That's not meant to be boxed in one particular confines of expression. I know I have so many talents to express myself, my ideas, my beliefs, my being. I'm called for that and to inspire through that. I know how much I care about holistic wellness and masculine healing and wellness, that I know the particular mediums on which I'm going to do it in. It's not just going to be like basic things, So I sat down and I did that. And I remember one day I just woke up, I packed my bags, left to go to an entire different city, country altogether. Didn't know anyone except the one person that I was with. And there I was in Cape Town starting a brand new life from scratch and figuring it out. And I tell you not, it was not the easiest journey, but every experience has been so nourishing that I see so much growth in those experiences at the time, because you grow so much from experiences and you gain so much freedom. This is when now I truly understood what freedom in God looks like, because you no longer chained to one particular expression of yourself, but you're walking in the truest divine essence of your authenticity, that you start to see abundance from a different angle. You start to respect the journey in that it's meant to grow you. That's why we spiral. It's like a journey to grow you. And every level you meet different challenges and they grow you, preparing you for what's right and what's right for you and what's coming for your life, for the blessings you've been praying about. You have to be prepared. There's so many times where I would be like, I want $1 million. And then now the next day I would ask myself, but if you caught $1 million, what would you do with it? Are you ready for $1 million? And I'm like, actually, I'm not, because there are so many things, financial lessons that I don't know and I'd love to learn. Even recently I had to ask myself, like yesterday when I recorded this, but I wasn't recording. And then I dropped so many bars. And it was a simple thing, just looking at the camera and making sure it's recording. I wasn't going to make it too deep because these are mistakes that happen, but I had to ask myself, those are small things, like small things. You should be on point with those small things, right? How can we refine ourselves to ensure that we are ready to receive the big things and do justice to the big things and grow in that? And I had to sit with that question all through that night. And I don't lie, I was a bit hard on myself, but I was like, I need to be a good steward in the small things, But ultimately, my sense of possibility has improved. And I hope you are also improving your sense of possibility in what can happen to you and what you allow God to do within your life, and how you are being authentic in your expressions in the world. Thank you so much for joining in, and have a blast of a week. Cheers.